Hello, this is Dale, and welcome to the Dale and Mike Show. And because it's the Dale and Mike Show, there's also a Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey, I almost said, hey, Mike. Hey, Dale.
Hey.
This seems to be one of these days so far here. Um, my wife and I had to run into town, and I had to get some shorts and a binder because I thought, well, because we had left our binder in the Ann Basker, I thought that the secretary, as she always does, would come along and grab it and throw it in the trash, so we'd never ever get it back again. So when we went out the door, I had to bribe the dogs because that's what you have to do sometimes. And I gave them these little munchie bones, which they love dearly. And I guess I inadvertently left the door to the pantry open. And when I did that, well, I didn't find out until I got back, but it looked like a drug dealer had spilled cocaine all over the house. And it turns out the dog pulled out a bag of powdered sugar and tore into it and left a trail of that all the way from the kitchen out to the dog run.
Are
And
are dogs mostly interested in ripping up a bag, or do they like sugar?
you know what? I think he liked tearing the bag open more because most of the sugar was left all over the place. So that's so far how my day's going.
Yeah, well, I got to go, and Mike was there too, to the weekly business session, but instead of being in the morning at 9 a.m., they decided to postpone it until 3 o'clock. And one of the reasons they decided to postpone it was Simon Hare felt that it was absolutely necessary to drive up to Portland and to attend an important meeting, because he loves to travel, and he loves to make an appearance when he gets there. And his report after going to Portland, just the same as it was after going to Washington, D.C., is nothing happened.
Yes. But I better be there because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Well, like that one conference that he went to where there was a half-naked girl with wearing just Spanglies that was on the table and everybody's looking up at her. Yeah, right. And, they're hoisting a few. Yeah, well, she was on the table and maybe on the menu as well.
Yes. That
It's
is perhaps
interesting. He
possible.
said that there was only two other counties, if I remember right, that had any commissioners there at all. Well, it's a good thing we had our commissioner there because we can afford such things, and we need to have these. Really,
Well, that's why we need to pass the levy because otherwise they won't be able to go to these things if they don't have enough money.
Well, you've seen, because you watch all of our videos, of course, everybody in the
Yes.
audience,
Oh, yes.
you've seen our video where they're talking about the ISF, how it's not going to go back to the sheriff, how it needs to be spent on education for commissioners. I agree, they do need education, but not the kind that they're looking for. And they need to do travel. And boy, this can get pretty expensive.
Well, you know what? I noticed that because what was it? Was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago that Arthur O'Hare
2 weeks.
gave us the spiel on the ISF. Well, today he gave us the spiel on the general fund, and I'm wondering. Simon actually brought up some valid points about the confusion that could have happened from the way this thing was laid out on their little presentation. But I'm wondering if they gave the same presentation to the SOS people.
Oh, I was listening to this guy, and I wondered that. Yeah, we're thinking alike about this. I was interested in the fact that when Arthur O'Hare gave the presentation, that first he felt it was necessary to explain to everybody that when he was here 2 weeks ago, he was talking about the ISF, but this is perfectly reasonable to start with the ISF because it certainly has nothing to do with the levy. What's the matter with you people that keep thinking such things? And then he went on at length about why it had nothing anything to do with the levy. It's just a natural way to start off. It is one of the touchiest issues about the entire levy and the ISF and the 10% going to the commissioners. Then he went into the general fund, and most of us talk about the general fund, although there's so many things that come out of it, was about how law enforcement comes out of the general fund. So really, we do need to pay attention to this, because law enforcement and all the things are going to be on the levy. Why? A lot of that stuff comes out of the general fund. So pay attention, everybody.
Yeah, you know what? I did think it was a bit of an eye opener when he talked about all the different funds. I may not have this number right, but it sounded like there was like 30 something different funds. I personally think that this adds to the confusion. And I think that if you had a general fund and that everything had to be funded out of the general fund, this would eliminate a lot of confusion. Now, I understand that you have these mandates from the state and the federal. When this money comes in, it has to be spent for this, or it has to be spent for that. But I just think it causes a whole lot of confusion. And the thing is it would make it a lot easier to prioritize things in the county if the stuff was in the general fund, and they could just go, well, you know what, we're spending this much money over here for 5 pencil pushers when they only need 2. Why don't we take that and put it over here? I mean, it would make it a whole lot easier to do that. I don't know why they don't do it.
Well, I think I know why. I'm hoping that when you're watching this show, that you're finding that what we're saying is understandable, that we explain the little acronyms and what we're about without going back over again and again. I mean, I know we do that sometimes for people who are new and joining us. The commissioners could talk in the same way. They could talk to you in everyday language. But when you notice, for example, Simon Hare, and you never see this with Keith Heck, but you notice with Simon Hare and with Arthur O'Hare, that they tell you a lot of details, and it's not adding to your understanding when they go on and on and on and on and on and on. Okay, but that's not the purpose, to explain it to you, because they'd use everyday language and they would tell you little pieces until you got that, and then they'd tell you another one next week.
Right.
Their purpose, the meta message, the big message to you is, we're smarter than you. This is too difficult for you to understand. Simon has actually said that in a meeting. I understand that this is too difficult for you to understand. And there were a couple of people in the audience like, you know, look who's too big for his britches. What do you mean it's too hard for us to understand?
I believe that you're right on that. That what they want to do is throw the fog of confusion on everything, and then you should thank your lucky stars that these smart people are dealing with this for you, so you don't have to figure it out.
Well, okay, so you can say, I've said it, that Simon Hare has an encyclopedic knowledge of certain subjects. I think that he does.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I had 2 majors in school. It was a dual major. Oh, big deal. One of them was physics, and the other one was journalism. So what I'd try to do is use a scientific method on things, but explain it to people in a way they could understand. If I'm not explaining it the way you can understand, all that knowledge of physics is useless.
Right.
So what we try to do in this show, and what we try to do, one is we don't lie to you. Okay, whether you like it or not, sorry, we're not going to be doing that. So don't send us a letter saying, please lie to us. We're not going to do it. Go to Simon Hare for that, okay, or the Courier. What we try to do is tell you the background about what's happening and explain to you in everyday English. This is not, the goal of that is to inform you. That's not the goal when they're talking to you like this. He's going on and on and on and on and on about all these numbers and the things and the this and the that, and then you walk out of there and you know something, and Mike knows something about this. He walks out of there going, what? Well, see, you should never walk out of the meeting going, what?
Yeah, right. It's you know, I question the intent of all of this stuff. You know, they could give this presentation to the commissioners at any time in the back room. They don't have to do it at the weekly business session, but they are doing it at the weekly business session for our consumption.
This is to educate you, Mike, so that you will know more once the budget meetings come up.
Right. Well, I wonder, you know, I mean, there's these 27 other categories or whatever. Is he going to come each week and do a thing on those? Or are we done after we've done the ISF and the general fund?
I have a feeling that he wasn't going to come back after the ISF, and that maybe he was asked to come back and do a general discussion of the general fund just so it would look like he wasn't
Hmm.
just there for the ISF. What's the purpose of this? The obvious purpose of the ISF. This is not conspiracy theory. All they did was talk about how important it was, how it's absolutely necessary. How about talking about some of the questions like, why do you say it's absolutely necessary? Because it's not.
Yeah.
And we didn't used to do it that way. And a lot of other counties are not doing it that way with the internal services fund. And if we're really in such an emergency with law enforcement, then let's put a moratorium on the ISF so that more people will vote for the levy. See, they're not going to talk about any of the real issues. Instead, they're just going to tell you how it's absolutely essential, absolutely necessary. There's no way around it. How many times have we heard that from our commissioners that there's no way around it? This just happened today. Nice segue, Dale. This just happened today, and they were talking, I think it was 2 weeks ago. No, I'm sorry, about a month ago, a little longer than 2 weeks ago, about how out in Merlin, there's absolutely no question about the fact that there's an area out there that was probably misdiagnosed, miscategorized for a long time because they said, well, this is residential, and it's not residential. Now, that means a lot to some people that own property because they would like to develop their property or sell their property or do something with their property. And
Hmm.
so there was a fellow out there for a long time that was asking, could we please look again at, and they were supposed to recategorize, they just never did. According to the records that are findable, and a lot of that stuff is just, they don't know where it is. That was the intention of the commissioners at that time. It just never happened. Oh, that's lovely.
Hmm.
So that guy's been waiting for years for this. And so Simon Hare says, now we're going to spot, what's that word? We're going to spot categorize, spot zone. We're going to spot zone your property. You came in, you asked for it, we're going to do it for you. And the
Hmm.
guy said, as a good citizen, hooray for this guy. He said, well, what about all the other people around me? Because it's all in the same area. Don't they all deserve the same consideration? No, says Simon Hare.
I'm sure they've been having these conversations over the back fence too. You know
Well,
that this
yeah,
is the one guy who's doing something about it.
we are not going to do it for those others. This is going to be a spot zone. Unless I'm wrong, I think, and that happens all the time, I think it was Wally Hicks that said, well, spot zones can be problematic. We're going to do it for this guy. We're just doing it for this guy. If they want something, they'll come in and ask for it. Now, this guy told them that other people have been asking for it, but yeah, whatever. So when we elected Simon Hare, we were always all asking for it.
Yes.
Anyway, so no, it's just going to be this guy. And then today, they explained how important it was not to do spot zones at all, and that they're going to have to do it for the entire community. And what a good boy I am. He stuck in his thumb and pulled out a plum. What a good boy I am, because they had thought this all along, of course. And who would even know that they didn't unless you didn't happen to be there sitting with me when I was videotaping it. Anyway.
Right. And I kind of wonder because he was saying that some of those, if they're going to rezone the whole area, they were talking about RR5, and
Mhm.
that may not work because many of these places are already under 5 acres. Um, yeah, that's a little bit tricky. Um, and I guess that they don't want to zone any smaller than that or something like I don't know. This is going to be kind of a weird thing. I'm interested to see how it comes out. I don't know why you can't just go with 2.5 acres. I live in a neighborhood that has some lots that are 2.5. They're huge lots. We're not in any danger of overcrowding here with the size lots that we have. So I don't know. Maybe there's some consideration specific to that area that need looking at or whatever. But
I know there are a number of people in the area who feel their heart just goes pitter-pat when people talk about zoning and properties. There are other people who say, You guys, what are you talking about such a boring issue for? Wasn't there anything really big and interesting? Here's the interesting part to me. Here's how history is rewritten in our county. They had said, we're absolutely not going to do this. There's no way. Simon Hare was adamant about it. Now, listen
Mm.
to me. We're only going to do a spot thing. We're definitely not going to do anything else. They're going to have to come in and ask for it. And then, without an intervening meeting, with nothing in between, it's now, we've always wanted to do a spot zone. This is what we were going to do from the beginning. Now, wait a minute. First of all, where was the meeting that took place in between that I didn't see? And
Yeah.
how is it that history is being rewritten here? When they can rewrite your history, we're all in a bunch of deep something.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. Now, let me tell you what, some of the dangers of some of this zoning stuff, because I came from a county that went from RR5 to all the way up to 40 acres. You had to have a 40-acre minimum to
Did you
even
have to
build a.
fuel?
No,
Okay.
yes, I understand where you're going there, but no, we didn't have to have that. Um, and then they went from 40 to 120, and then they went from 120 to 360 acres. Now, your little guy who wants to live out in the country cannot buy himself a little piece of land and build a house, because he's got to have 360 acres. Well, okay, this devalues greatly people who have large tracts of land and have been sitting on it for who knows how long, with the idea that somewhere down the road they'll be able to parcel pieces of this off and sell it for their family's posterity or whatever. Um, well, it cuts down the value of that land, and now all of a sudden your big wine operations can afford to buy some of this stuff at a much greater discount, because it's of lesser value than it would ordinarily be if you could actually build something on it, homes or something like that. And gee, I wonder who they were doing that for. So you have to be careful. You got to keep a good eye on this stuff, otherwise it's going to squeeze the little guy out. And if there's one thing that it has, that they've already done plenty of here, is squeeze the little guy out.
And for me, squeezing the little guy out fits into the other category I was talking about, which is if you try to keep track of when they're telling you the truth and when they're not, but they have the power over rewriting the minutes to the meetings, not telling you what's happening, and recategorizing everything that they do. If you weren't there with me as a witness, if I wasn't telling you what happened at that meeting, you wouldn't know. Now, this time, to you, it might be a small subject, but next time, it's going to be a much bigger subject. Oh, we were always like, okay, one of the good ones is when they showed up at the big weekly business session and they were talking about putting animals to death a little earlier, because that's much more efficient, you see. And I'd made several calls, but other people made all the rest of the calls. I called some of the key people, and they called everybody and their brother, and they packed the place. And Simon Hare, his summary of it was, well, we never really intended to sign this anyway.
Yes. Yeah. That's what happens when they've been caught with your britches down, or your their hand in your pocket. Uh,
Their hand in
yeah.
your britches? That's just not
Yeah.
nice.
Yes. Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
No, that's what
that's Simon
happens.
Hare. I'd
This.
love to get in your pants. Remember that?
Right.
Get your hand out of my britches.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunate
We'll burn those britches when we come to
analogy
them.
there.
Yes, right.
Yes. So anyway, I just always advocate for more people being involved here, and the more people that are involved, and really, what, this guy's neighbors, they really should be involved in things. They all should go down there and talk about it if they care about how their property is zoned in the future.
There were people that showed
That's
up at the
important.
weekly business session today. I saw several people I'd never seen at one before, and they showed up because they heard about this at the last minute, and they went not to speak. I'm so glad they were there, but they went not to speak, but to find out what was going to happen to them.
Mm. Yes.
Oh,
Isn't that nice? Yes,
oh
I'd like to
no.
know. I'd like to know if I'm on the King's beheading list this week.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
really it. That was really it.
You know what? I mean, it's How to Be a Subject by John Q. Citizen. Uh,
Golly.
yeah, that's unfortunate.
Well,
Too many of
I know
us.
there's that saying that you can't fight City Hall. I know
Uh,
the saying. I happen to know that's not true. But you go to the meeting so you can find out what the government's going to do to you.
yeah.
Really?
Well, and listen, uh, it's been proven in the past 6 months. It's happened a few times where if you pack the like-minded into there and to oppose some particular legislation they've proposed, you can kill it. And
It's an interesting turn of events. It did not used to be that way. They
yeah.
would say many times. Sandy Casanelli would tell you, because we were at so many of these meetings together. And they would say, the number of people, it doesn't matter if you pack this place. They've said that because I know there's more people out there that oppose this.
Yes. Yeah, that reminds me of something very similar Obama said right after the 14 election. He said, yes, all of you who voted, I have heard you. And all of you who didn't vote, I heard you too. And what he didn't say out loud is, I'm going with the guys who didn't vote with me here.
Well, we don't
I'm,
even need to
you
go to
know,
Washington, D.C. to hear that. We can hear that from Linda
yeah.
Scott, who's one of the people, one of the head people about the levy. And they say, yes, we've had many votes before, but this levy is totally different. It's for something completely different that you've never heard of. And it doesn't matter what you say. In fact, it doesn't even matter if you have the facts and figures right in front of you, because all those facts and figures are invalid because I say so.
Yeah, or something like that. No, I'm in the midst of some banter, shall we say, with Linda Scott on Facebook. Anybody who's not on the Josephine County politics page, you should go there, because if there's something happening in local politics, it's being hashed out there. We've got about 80 something members at this point, but it's a good place to go because people who are politically minded or who care about what's going on are hanging out there.
Well, no,
But
just let me interrupt you just for a second. I
okay.
apologize. If you're like me, one place that you go to try to find this kind of stuff is you go to Google and you would type in Facebook
Yes.
Josephine County politics and put Josephine County politics in not just air quotes but real quotes. This will not
Not gonna
work.
work.
Not going to work. In fact, if you use Yahoo, you can forget about it. Why are you using Yahoo?
Yeah.
Anyway, what you need to do is, and I found this out because Mike was nice enough to coach me in it, you need to go to Facebook first. Then, in the little bar at the top of Facebook, that's where you type in Josephine County politics, and you don't need quotes. Then it will
Right.
take you there, okay?
Yes.
It
That's right.
should work both ways. It doesn't, so go argue with the inventor
Yes.
of
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Mr.
That's
Google.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
So go do the
So
Google. No, don't go do the Google.
yes.
Go to Facebook.
Yes. Depending on your definition of that, if it's anything like this is music or typing, then
Oh, come on.
we
Everybody
got
knows this is typing and it's music both. And it can be both depending on what kind of typewriter you have.
right. Yes.
Typewriter?
Exactly.
Grandpa, what's a typewriter?
Yes. That's right. So anyway, um, I've recounted on a number of occasions what I heard at the levy kickoff event. The Cuffs people. You had who's the administrator
Scott
there?
Draper.
No,
Scott Draper
no.
was one of the people talking.
Yeah, Scott Draper's.
The big
He's the head guy.
Jay Meredith.
Jay Meredith, and he's kind of emceeing the event, and then he goes down the panel. And you got a panel of 4 or 5 people. You got Scott Draper. You have the chief of police. Then you had the gal who's got the concierge security business. Then Dave Daniel. Then it was the juvenile justice guy. What's his name? Goodwin.
Yeah, Jim Goodwin. Jody Thomas I think that's her name, with concierge. Wasn't she
Hmm.
the one that said that that the thieves are coming to
Yes.
Josephine County
Yes.
with the sole purpose? We're not making this up.
Yeah.
The thieves are coming to Josephine County with one sole purpose. Their sole purpose is to
Yes.
sow is to cause hate, thieves that cause hate and discontent. They're not here to
Yes.
steal from you, so don't worry about that. But if you're
Yes.
starting to feel a little down, you've got iron poor, tired blood, well, that's because thieves are coming here, probably from California, because
That's
their
right.
sole purpose is to make you hate the people from that are pushing for the levy.
Yes, or something. Whatever. But anyway, she didn't say that at the. She didn't say that at the event
No, she
there
said
at
other
the kick.
laughable things at that.
Yeah, that was at KJO later on. However, they were asked a question about their priorities, and they did kind of lay out a priority, and I remember distinctly they said, basically first is the jail beds, and then it's juvenile justice, and then if there's anything left over, that'll go to patrols. Now they may have meant something totally different than how I interpreted it, but she thinks that somehow I am throwing out red herrings. I am trying to distract you people from the truth. Because the truth is, and she gave me the website address. So go to communityunitedforsafety.com and let me see. Go to the petition page, and they have a summary there. She says you can read that. That's everything.
But
Uh,
this is not what they're
okay.
saying.
No, it isn't with.
We
No,
could read the summary on the last levy. The last levy had a summary also. But if you listen to Mark Gatlin, he would say to you, I was right there when he was telling people they were trying to get people to sign this, and they have to put the summary there in order for
Mhm.
you to sign it. Now, it's illegal to tell somebody that I know it says this, but it means that. That's against the law. That's against state law, probably against federal law. And he was telling people, well, I know that you might think that they're going to take 10% out of the sheriff and use it for ISF, but they're not. They're not going to take anything away from the sheriff. No, nothing. Well, see, not only is that illegal, it's a danged lie. It's a lie. And so, what was Mark Gatlin's answer when I pointed out that he had lied to everybody? Well, that Dale Matthews, he's an idiot, or he's wrong, or he's a liar all the time.
Yes.
That's really the best they could do?
Well,
Really? I'm sowing
but but
discontent?
but here's the interesting thing. I mean, they got a whole slew of videos on that site now, and one of the ones that's getting a lot of play is the one of the sheriff talking about what he does and the levy
Oh,
and
I mean the one where he's got his fingers like this and it's got the sad
yes,
music in the background.
right,
Now listen to
and
me.
and
I've got
and
my fingers
she
in the power position here, and I'm
right.
telling you over sad music how we need to protect the children. Don't you want to protect the children? Think about kittens and sunshine.
Yes, something like that, but she's accusing me of propaganda.
Yes.
Uh, what in a Facebook post? I'm putting up a little Facebook post here, and I'm gonna turn a lot of people with that one. Let me
But
tell
what
you.
does that tell you in the audience? What does that tell you? They're very, very sensitive. They cannot take any criticism. What's just recently happened to somebody that you know? What is it that apparently Linda Scott did? Put her on the I don't want to hear from this person ever again list.
Oh no, no, that was
Not Linda Scott?
Kristen
Oh, yeah,
Michael.
yeah,
She
yeah.
was one of these others. As soon as I mentioned her on the show, all of a sudden she disappears, and I thought, wow, she's disappeared. I haven't seen her anymore. I don't know what happened to her. She might be on vacation. No, she's not on vacation. She blocked me, and I would wonder why. I come up to somebody's like and wonder who liked that. And as soon as my little cursor goes over the like thing, it disappears. And then somebody's having a conversation with her, and her part of it is missing. It's a clue.
Yeah, well, when they're so sensitive, like the guy that's in charge of IT now for the county, I'd gone to a meeting, and Archie Light, it was an SOS meeting, and Archie Light says, Dale Matthews is going to do a little talk about the other side. We should listen carefully because he's going to tell us some of the arguments the other side is using. Okay, now Mark Solomon says, don't never tell him our secrets. I said, Mark, everybody should know what the other side has. And so
Yeah.
maybe they've got some way they can change a little bit, or we'll hear what their counter is to that. Let's put our cards on the table. Let's talk about why we think that they're full of beans. We can talk about that. And so this guy, I don't remember his name right now, but he was so upset with the idea that you'd have anybody, especially me, okay, that was there talking about the other side, that he had to get up and leave the room for the entire time I was talking.
Yeah.
That's pretty sensitive.
Well,
You
you
think
know
they're
what?
afraid of us? That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we really need to dispel this idea that somehow this is all a citizen-based, grassroots-sprung operation.
Well, we
Because
talked about
anything,
Jay Meredith. Jay Meredith was the host for
he's
the evening. And what does Jay
right.
Meredith do for his daytime job?
He's like the city administrator or some darn thing, right?
So what? Really? I mean,
Yeah,
and one of the key players is Connie Roach. Connie Roach was the one that says, when you put together your petitions and everything, you come by, you drop them at my office. Well, not so
right.
bad if she's in a real estate office. She is the county assessor. You have to come into the courthouse and go to her office to drop off recall petitions so
Well,
they can be gathered up and then taken over to the clerk.
and listen, their argument for this is we're citizens too. Well, they are citizens, but they're the citizens from which this sprung, and they just happen to have, they just happen to be in the loop. If some of this passes, it somehow benefits their longevity there, or how much they're
The
getting
county
paid, or
assessor?
whatever.
Yeah, I would think so. And you've
Yeah,
seen the video, or you should have seen the video by now, because I posted it twice at two different times when it first happened and just relatively recently, of Keith Heck doing the actual kickoff for this entire levy. And
mm,
then later says, well, Cuff says, SOS says, oh, the commissioners are not involved in any way. Well, apparently Keith Heck is very upset about that they don't want them involved, but they're already involved. Oh, this was initiated by the citizens. No, it wasn't. Don't lie to
yeah.
me again and
Yeah,
again and again.
and you know what? You don't see some a bunch of guys sitting around in some neighborhood going, you know what we really need to do? We need to kick off another levy push because you know what? It hasn't been done right and blah blah blah. It's not happening there. This is a community organizer type of thing. I have my own personal suspicions that this is being launched right out of the union, and I think they're throwing some money at it this time because in these commercials that they're putting out, I'm seeing production value. They got the imaging down pat. They know what they're doing here.
And
This is
regardless of the quality or lack of quality of this show, Mike knows about production values.
yes, that's right. Yes, nice. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll be getting emails about every mistake that I make here from here
No,
on
no,
out.
nobody even notices because nobody's watching.
No,
Look,
I'm not saying I'm a master on that, but you don't have to be an art master to recognize it when you see it.
you don't have to be art master. Wasn't that the guy that
Yes.
got so many people to move to this county? What was that
I
guy's
know
name?
you're
Was it
thinking
Art
of
Master?
Roy Masters. You're
Oh,
thinking
is
of
his
Roy Masters
brother
now.
Roy? Yeah.
Yes, his brother Art. Yes, he's a big
Here's
art.
here's
He's
here's
a
one of
big
the
art
other
aficionado. That guy.
Art Robinson. Here's
Yes,
one of those
right,
things. Art Linkletter. Who was that? What and commissioners say the darndest things.
right. Yes.
One of the things that you see at the weekly business session, especially, is the commissioners say we have absolutely nothing to do and with this levy, and you better get that smile off your face, Mr. Matthews. Why, you chortled the other day, and we're going to toss you out of these meetings. You couldn't hear me. Nobody could hear me. I couldn't hear myself on my own camera. That's how low volume was. And the camera's about this far away from me because I have to hold it very close or it's going to burst into flames. And you couldn't even hear me. But he could hear me chortling, and you better not chortle when I say we've got nothing to do with this. They are really sensitive about the idea that
Yes.
people are laughing at them. Real sensitive about that, boys and girls. Don't you go to these meetings and laugh at them. When they tell you something, you better take it to heart. But they'll say something like, well, we're not involved with this at all. By the way, did you go to the SOS, run away from the law? What's that called? Run from the law, run for the
Yeah.
law. And they're
I
talking, well,
put,
I was there and I participated and I rode a bicycle.
yes.
Hey, wait a minute. That's an SOS event. Yes, but it has nothing to do with the levy. What?
Oh yeah,
So,
but
so then,
you know what? Listen, just to clear that up, these commissioners were hanging out at SOS before they became commissioners, and you know all the potential commissioners were hanging out at SOS. This thing has and in the very beginning, or you know, I wasn't there in the very beginning, but I was shortly thereafter, and
right
it,
after the Big Bang.
yeah, right, exactly. And it was chock loaded full of public employees.
Chock
And
full of
they
nuts.
and they were the ones who showed up every time. Now they'll say, "Oh yeah, we have this big mailing list of blah blah blah." Yeah, you went out and you hung out at the fair or something, and you took names from people, and those people are on your mailing list. So what? You know, these are not the people, these are not the core people, these are not the community organizer people. And every single one of the positions, you know, committee chairman in each of the little, you know, because they had a committee for the timber, they had a committee for, you know, one thing or the other. Most of those seats were occupied by somebody who works in the city or the county.
Here's the bottom line. I'll let Mike answer this. When they get together and they make phone calls out to everybody just before the election and urge you to vote to raise your own property taxes, what organization plays the host for them making all those phone calls? Mike?
I'm pretty sure that's AFSCME. Yeah, the SEIU, that's more for state workers, I
The
think.
employees union.
Right. It's a public employee union hall. And listen, um, most of you are probably aware that unions, generally speaking, have huge political agendas. They need to because they need to have legislation that favors them coming their way all the time. So they need to refresh that pool of politicians. And they also like the public's money going to government because it then makes the loop all the way back around into their coffers as well. Um, so they ran their phone banks out of AFSCME, and those people are not going to allow anything to take place there that doesn't fit with their criteria for appropriate political action. So you
So
know
when you
that's
get a
that's
call,
how
and you
that one
will
goes.
get a call, and you
Yeah, you
see
probably will.
advertisements, and you will see advertisements. And when you hear all this stuff on KJO, and we're already hearing this, when you're all these things are out there massaging you, and people are holding their fingers in a tent, and they're playing the sad music in the background, and as soon as they start talking about children and puppies and this kind of stuff, just realize that they're trying to manipulate your feelings, and maybe you already feel that you love this idea. That's okay. You just need to understand who's picking up the bill.
Right, which kind of makes me want to see their donor list and you know do a little bit of accounting trail back to where this money emanates.
Following the accounting trail is so, because many people will say, hey, you're journalists, follow the money. So following the accounting trail has been really mysterious. Mysterious? Why would that be? Okay, why would Rotary Club have a secret membership list? Okay, I mean, if they're so above board, why the secret meetings? Why the secret membership list? That's a question you should ask yourself. Why is that the case? Why is it that all three commissioners have for all this time been members of the Rotary Club? Why was it that Cheryl Walker was president of Rotary? Okay, things are happening there that you're not going to get a chance to hear because they get together in a quorum. Well, don't get me started, Mike. Stop it. So, look, here's the point. When they pull these items together, you try to follow where the money's coming from. So they started off with SOS, and then that morphed into cuffs, and then they have a certain ID where they need to identify what their number is as a 501c3, a charity, a charity, a charity.
Yes.
So they need to
Well,
identify themselves as a charity or as a political action committee. They've changed that number, that listing, that variation of name 3 times. Why would they change their variation 3 times?
uh,
Because they're completely above board. Well, what's the matter with you citizens? Come on, get on board.
yeah, they might be covering a trail there.
I
And it,
don't know, but it's the same kind of thing that made us start wondering about manor development out at the airport. Because something wasn't adding up right. And after you make the first phone call and they hang up on you, you go, that's an odd reaction. And when they change their number with the state, you go, that's an odd thing to do. And then when they say, well, it doesn't matter what they've done in the past, that's an odd thing for Simon to say. And then when it turns out that they're his biggest contributor to his reelection campaign, you go, well, that's an odd thing. When it starts adding up to all these odd things, when do we get something that doesn't look so odd? It doesn't smell. When do we get that? So if you haven't made up your mind, of course you made up your mind. You're watching the show, of course you made up your mind. But the thing is, what I asked them at the last SOS meeting that they're going to let me go to is I said, do you know that you've got people in this room, in your organization, that are telling us it's 10% for the ISF, it's 0% for the ISF, it's a half of 1% for the ISF, and that 10% will be taken out of the sheriff's budget and 15% put back in. You've all said, you've got people here in your group, leaders of your group, that are telling people this. How can you stay in a group where people say these 4 things which are mutually exclusive? How's that possible? You're the good guys. You think you're the good guys. How can you be the good guys when you've got someone sitting right here that told us, that told other people, that swore on the Bible, or was willing to swear on the Bible, if there was a Bible there, that 0% is taken out for the ISF? 0%. He was willing to swear on the Bible. Who's that guy's name? What's that guy's name? I'll mention him by initials. Mark Gatlin. Well, there you go. You may have wanted to vote for that guy. That's the kind of commissioner he would have been. So I was at a weekly business session when I mentioned something that would happen with Rob Brandis. Rob Brandis. I always mention his name again because he said if I ever mentioned his name again, he was going to sue me as a
what are
county
his
employee.
initials?
Yeah, Rob Brandis. And so
Oh, yeah.
I recounted what had happened with this thing where the investigators went down to go take a look at the vehicles, and the license plates had been changed, and we weren't looking at the right vehicles. Hey, what happened to this vehicle? Well, we changed it. We want you to look at this one. What? He admitted it on tape. So I got up and I mentioned that because we were talking about vehicles and that kind of stuff and budget and all that. And Mark Gatlin got up and he says, it's outrageous. It's insane. It's just not possible. Now, see, that's the kind of commissioner Mark Gatlin would have been because he hadn't seen the tape. He hadn't read through the report. He hadn't talked with me or anyone else that went out there. He apparently hadn't talked with Rob Brandis, who might have told him the truth. That's a possibility. Maybe he does occasionally tell people the truth. That's possible. This is a parody. The point is that Mark Gatlin was more than willing to tell everybody it was insane and that I was the crazy one when he didn't have any information at all. 0. So thank you, Mark Gatlin. Boy, I'm not real happy with Simon as a counselor, as a commissioner, but I'm really glad it's not Mark Gatlin because he would have been in for a world of trouble.
Because yes, no question about it. So you know what, what's the moral of the story here?
That they have no morals. That's one of them.
Yes, I think that's pretty accurate.
Thank you very much, sir, and good evening, everybody.